So welcome back, everyone. We're talking with Stephanie Maloney, and she is the owner of Premier Estate Planning. We've been talking at the break a little bit about some of how important it is so much right now, especially with what's going on. So many sickness. You know, you got to start thinking about taking care of yourself, making sure that your wills and your trusts are all taken care of. But doing it through you, so different because it's a document that gets taken care of, and it's so much easier than having to go to an attorney, you're saying, and you don't always need to have one, just to repeat that.
I think it's for most people, I think it's a little more comfortable position. I think most of us would agree we really don't want to have to go to an attorney for anything.
Right, you think that it's a bad thing.
And I know for a lot of people it's the cost. They just think, oh my gosh, it's going to be so expensive.
And you made it very affordable for people.
I think so. We're not the least expensive in town, but we're much less than the typical path.
And what I like about you, what you said, is that you follow everybody in that afterwards. It's not just doing it, it's now teaching them what the process is and what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's where you pick up something different versus going to LegalZoom, preparing the documents, because the documents are probably fine, but you do everything that needed to be done after the documents were created. And that's usually where I'll find when I'm doing the reviews that you mentioned, we'll look at other people's documents just to make sure they're fine and they need to be updated. And usually we find that they didn't do any of that other work that needed to be done, and they're just shocked.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nobody giving you that hand-holding that you might need.
There's nothing like it.
Most of us only do this once.
Right.
We don't know. And if you do go through the typical channels, most people are intimidated. They don't know what they need.
Well, we are live on Facebook to hide everybody out there. I accidentally didn't start it before, so it'll be up there later on today. But that's what you get when you have a COVID-19 going around and you have to do everything yourself. But you can check them out on their website. It is premieraz.net. They do free consultations.
Yes.
Their phone number to call is 602-371-8898. Write this information down. What I know about people is they do things when they're ready. They do.
Sure.
And unfortunately with this, you almost wait till it's too late. Look what happened to a lot of the famous people we know just in the last couple of years that died that did not have an estate plan. You're thinking, how could they have not done something like that? And they had money.
Oh yeah, and my father-in-law started this in '68. 8 out of 10 people under 60 have no documents, and it really hasn't changed through the years. We put it off.
We do.
It's not fun. We don't want to talk about this, retirement planning, any of it. It's like, ugh.
It's so important,
I want to do anything
guys.
else.
Their number to call, it's 602-371-8898. It's a document that's prepared for you, but that can change your entire life, give you peace of mind.
Yes.
At night, for sure. I know I had one done years and years and years ago that myself, that I felt better too. I just had a lift about me. We were talking about single people, single women.
Yeah.
And let's talk a bit about that.
We've been meeting lots of single people coming to the table to get their stuff done because they know they don't have children, they don't have a significant other, and they're realizing, I need to get, they're creating assets. They may have a home and all of, the stuff they created, and they're starting to think, well, where am I going to leave it? That's a big question. I don't know where to leave it. And then who am I going to ask to do these big jobs? Death is easy. Becoming incapacitated, we all have a good chance of that happening because of our modern medicine. We may not die. They keep us around, but we may not be functioning. And you want to have those documents in place because if you don't get your documents done, probably the person that you would have nominated in your documents is the one that's going to come forward and step up to be that person. But then they have to go through a court process to create the same documents that you could have done before there was a problem. And of course the cost will be higher. And one of the concerns people have is they don't want to bother people. Oh, it seems like so much work, I don't want to do that. Well, I assure you it's more work for them when you don't get the documents in order and they have to go through and do it and kind of guess what you wanted.
Oh, you nailed it on the head. Just to tell a story, I also too had my father. I saw it happen. My father, when he passed away, my mom had already passed, and I saw my brother who went through a tremendous amount of stress because it wasn't 100%. He thought he did have it all done, and that's another reason why you have to make sure that you have a second set of eyes, a second opinion on some of these things. Because my father, who thought he had it all done, he was Mr. Smart, and didn't do one little thing, and it was notarizing something that he wanted done that was outside of everything. He wrote it all out, but it wasn't notarized.
Yeah.
So it could have been from anybody as far as everybody else looked at it. And so who got hurt? Well, it was me. And it's kind of sad when things like that we talk about this. And what I love about our show, and I've said it a million times, probably every show, and I'm sorry for people that have to hear it all the time, but this information is wonderful for people out there. And unfortunately, it takes people a long time to do things.
Yeah.
That's another thing. You people out there, we know you're procrastinators, and you are. So important for you to pick up the phone. It's a consultation.
Right.
Find out where you stand. Start off with that, and I guarantee you're going to be so happy after you get that first consultation done.
When people come to the table and they do have some knowledge, they've been doing some research for a while, kind of learning about the process. A lot of times, through our discovery process, they learned that they didn't know the right things about certain documents, too. So you just want to make sure, if you are doing your own research, make sure it's a good source. You know, a lot of people come to the table and they think a will accomplishes what a revocable trust does. They think trusts are for wealthy people. You know, so you have to decide which path you want to take when everybody's gone. How do you want the process to look? And regardless of whether you do will or trust, it's better to have your own wishes in writing than letting somebody else figure it out when you're not here to communicate.
And again, explain to them how you work, because a document preparer, some people might think, well, you know, what is she going to know? Tell them what the difference.
Yeah.
And how long you've been doing it.
Oh, well, gosh. As I said, we've been here in the Valley since '95. My husband works with me in this capacity as well, and we learned from Mike Maloney Sr., and he's been doing it since 1968. So we have a great mentor, and you know, we take people through the process, give them the education, tell them all the differences. They come to a conclusion as to what their family needs. We collect data, prepare the documents, deliver the documents. You know, it takes, depending on the type of documents people, for a couple, it could take up to 2 hours for delivery, because we're explaining. We want them to understand the function of the documents. And then, as I said earlier, we do the successor education. So once we're done, there are people that are going to be stepping into that role. They know kind of what they're supposed to do. And depending on what type of documents they chose, they may or may not need an attorney to help with that process. But at least they'll know.
Right.
So it's just about educating. And I hope it's always going to be a long time before the documents are going to be needed.
Mm-hmm.
But certain things will resonate with your successors. They'll remember little things that will help them through the process. And just give them a little knowledge.
You know, I this is a weird thing to say, but the truth is it's the best 2 hours that you might spend, because it's something that's going to give you the peace of mind. You do not need to have a lot of money to do something like this. There are things that you need in place for your own self, your own wishes, that you want to make sure that they're taken care of.
Yep.
It's more about that. You talked about how single women, single people, it doesn't
single
matter.
people.
And also you talked a little bit about kids. There's a lot of kids right now that are scared, and there are a lot of kids that are more a little bit, they're self-sufficient,
Yeah.
and they're younger, and they also too need to be taken care of and need to do
And that can go for any of your adult children that don't have a significant other. You could have a 35-year-old son that's not married, no girlfriend, no significant person in his life. So if something happens catastrophic to him, chances are he's going back to his parents or a sibling or somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So even, young to whatever age.
And has the HIPAA laws made everything so much more important for you to make sure all of these things are being done?
Absolutely. And HIPAA's mentioned in your estate planning documents, your trust. It's mentioned in the durable power of attorney, of course, in the healthcare document. Because when you're in the hospital making a medical decision, it's a money decision too, and you have to have information about the person.
When you talk to people, what is the first thing that usually people ask you about this when you get a lot of questions and stuff like that?
I think the most common thing people say is, my stuff's simple. My stuff's really simple. And something that's happening a lot now that people don't realize how important it is when you have a second marriage and you're bringing children in from each marriage, that aren't their children together. It's so important to have documents, because if you die with the Commonwealth of Arizona, the estate goes to the survivor, and then if they don't do documents, it goes down their bloodline. So their children are disinherited.
Mm-hmm.
So even something like that, of course you would think the survivor, of course they don't want to disinherit anybody, they're not doing it intentionally, but things can happen that you have no idea about.
Oh, and it's sad. And my brother passed away suddenly, okay? And this is the thing that can happen to anybody. We have to look at this. This is life. This is real life here. And we're talking about things that are so important for people. What would be your final, words for everyone?
I would just say don't just get a consultation and just learn and ask questions. There are no dumb questions when it comes to this because it's everybody's first time.
And I think what you love is the education part of it, and I love that you've been doing that for a long time for people. Not only just making sure that you have everything done correctly, but that you follow them afterwards. You make sure everybody understands. I think that is huge because I know myself, if something happened to me, my 2 daughters, they'd freak out. I don't know what they would do. They're so dramatic. You can check them out on their website. It is premieraz.net. They do free consultations. Their number is 602-371-8898.
Thank you.